The cameras were already rolling when the sky tore open. A Vought stage sat in the middle of a blocked-off street in Manhattan. Bright screens, loud music, smiling faces on posters. Fans pressed behind metal fences, phones up, ready to scream for anyone in a cape. A giant banner hung above the stage. Vought International Presence. A New Dawn. Barry Allen did not see any of that at first. He saw light. A hard, white-blue crack of lightning split the air like someone ripped a hole in a picture. Wind slammed outward. Paper cups and cheap hats flew. People shouted and ducked. Barry hit the street on one knee, sliding across the asphalt like a thrown stone. His boots scraped. His hands burned from the shock. He forced his body to stop, because if he didn't, he would keep going and break something. Or someone. He looked up. Big screens showed his own shape in a frozen blur. Red suit, yellow lightning, a man-shaped storm. Barry blinked fast. His heart was racing, even by his standards. This wasn't Central City. The buildings were wrong. The smell was wrong. The air felt heavier, like it carried more fear. A child cried nearby. That sound cut through everything. Barry stood up, hands open, and took one step toward the fence line. "Hey, it's okay," he said, voice soft. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." A loud crack cut him off. A security guard in a black Vought uniform had raised his rifle. The muzzle flashed again, pointed at a man on the street who was scrambling away on hands and knees. "Stop!" the guard shouted. "Get down! Hands behind your head!" The man didn't move fast enough. He was scared. He was clumsy. He was human. Barry saw the bullet leave the barrel. He saw it spin. He saw the tiny puff of heat behind it. His body moved before his mind finished the thought. Time seemed to slow for him, like it always did when he ran. Barry crossed the distance in less than a blink. He slipped between the bullet and the man. He turned his shoulder and let the bullet pass through him. Not into him. Through him. His molecules shifted. The metal slug cut through empty space where his chest should have been. Barry grabbed the man by the collar, lifted him, and carried him to the sidewalk. Then Barry was back on the street again, between the guard and the crowd, hands up. The guard fired more shots. Barry moved in short bursts, left, right, down, up. The bullets hit the ground. The wall, the stage support beams. None of them hit a person. A woman behind the fence screamed, "It's real! It's a real soup!" Barry's head snapped toward her. A soup? He heard a dozen phones zoom in at once. He heard 100 voices rise, confused and excited and terrified. A Vought PR worker on the stage stepped forward with a smile that looked pasted on. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. This is an unexpected moment, but Vought is in control." Barry's stomach tightened. He didn't like the word control. He turned to the guard. "Hey," Barry said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Don't shoot. That guy didn't do anything." The guard stared like he was looking at a ghost. "What the hell are you?" Barry swallowed. I'm just someone trying to help." More sirens approached. Police. More Vought vehicles. More guns. Barry could feel the whole street turning into a trap. He could leave, easily. He could be 10 miles away before anyone blinked again. But there were people here. Hundreds. And the guards were nervous. Barry looked at the stage supports. One of them had cracked from the shock wave when he arrived. It was subtle. Nobody else had noticed yet. But Barry did. If that support failed, part of the stage could drop into the crowd. He moved again. Fast. Quiet. Careful. To the crowd, he vanished. To Barry, he walked through a frozen world of faces and phones. He slid under the stage. He braced the weakened support with a metal beam from a supply rack. He tightened bolts with a speed that made his hands hum. He checked the weight. He made sure it would hold. Then he was back where he started. A new sound hit him then. Not sirens, not shouting. A deep, steady roar overhead. Barry looked up. A man floated above the stage, cape hanging like a flag. Blonde hair, perfect face, blue suit, bright smile. Homelander. Barry didn't know the name yet, but he felt what the man was the second he saw him. A predator in a costume. Homelander hovered with his hands behind his back, like a king at a parade. His voice rolled out over the speakers, without needing a microphone. "Everyone relax," he said. "Vought has this." The crowd cheered, like they had been waiting for a cue. Homelander's eyes dropped to Barry. The smile stayed, but the warmth didn't. "And you," Homelander said, as if talking to a stray dog that wandered onto his lawn. "Nice entrance." Barry kept his hands open. "Hi. I didn't mean to crash your event. I'm trying to figure out where I am." Homelander tilted his head. "Where you are is my city." A second man appeared beside the stage in a blur of blue streaks and street dust. He wore a sleek suit with a big A on it. He bounced on the balls of his feet, full of nervous energy, like he was trying to look casual while holding a grudge. A-Train. He stared at Barry with a hard grin. "A red speedster," he said. "That's cute." Barry's eyes flicked to him, quick and calm. He had seen speed before. He had fought speed before. This wasn't it. Homelander lowered a little, still floating. "So," he said, voice pleasant. "Which company made you?" Barry frowned. "Company?" Homelander's smile widened. "Don't play shy." Barry shook his head. "Nobody made me." A strange ripple moved through the crowd. Confusion. Then laughter from some people. Then a hush again. On the giant screens behind them, Vaught's editing team had already pulled up a title card. Red and gold lightning framed Barry's silhouette. New hero. Mystery speedster. Barry looked at the screens, then back at Homelander. He felt a cold truth settle in his chest. This world wasn't asking who he was. It was deciding what he would be used for. And somewhere, far above the rooftops, a thin flicker of yellow lightning snapped once, like a camera flash, then vanished. Barry didn't see it, but his spine still tightened, like his body remembered a nightmare. Huey Campbell watched the footage on his phone 3 times in a row. He was in a tiny apartment with the curtains half closed, because he had learned the hard way that sometimes the safest thing in this city was not being seen. His hands were a little shaky. That was normal now. On the screen, the red blur moved between bullets like the bullets were tired. Huey swallowed. That's not like A-Train." Annie January sat on the couch, elbows on her knees, leaning forward. She was still wearing her hoodie. Her hair was tied back. Her face looked tired in a way makeup could never hide. "That's because A-Train is a joke," she said, then stopped and corrected herself. "He's not a joke. He's dangerous. But that..." She pointed at the screen as Barry phased through a shot. "That is different." Billy Butcher stood behind them, arms crossed, jaw tight. "It's a soup," he said, like the word tasted bad. "That's what it is." Sat at the table, notebook open, pen ready. He didn't look at the phone at first. He looked at Huey. "Play it again," said. Huey did. Again. Frenchie leaned in from the kitchen doorway, cigarette unlit between his fingers. His eyes were wide with real interest, the kind he got when he saw something that shouldn't exist. "He's not on Compound 5, Frenchie murmured. "Look at the movement. Look at the precision. A-Train is fast, but he is sloppy. He is heavy." Kimiko stood near the wall, quiet, her head tilted as she watched the blur. Her eyes tracked it like she could somehow follow it. Annie's voice dropped. Vought is already calling him a new hero. They'll try to own him, or they'll kill him. Butcher snorted. If they can. Finally looked at the screen. He watched the moment where the red speedster saved the man the guard was about to shoot. MM's face didn't change much, but his eyes did. That, said softly, was someone saving a stranger. Butcher leaned forward, voice hard. Or someone setting up a show. Huey glanced at Butcher. He didn't look like he wanted attention. Butcher's gaze snapped to Huey. And you know that how? Huey opened his mouth, then shut it again. Because he didn't know. Not for sure. But he remembered A-Train laughing as he killed Robin like she was nothing. This red guy didn't laugh. This red guy looked scared. Annie stood up. I'm going to find him. Butcher's lips pulled into a thin smile. No, you're not. You're going to lead him to us, and then we're going to figure out what he is, before Vought does. Tapped his pen on the notebook. We do it careful, he said. No chaos. No bodies. Butcher looked at him like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Not yet. Frenchie flicked his eyes to Annie. If he is real, he said, he changes everything. Huey watched the last frame again, the red blur standing under Homelander, the way the crowd cheered for Homelander like he was a god. Huey whispered without meaning to. What happens when someone faster than A-Train meets someone who thinks he owns the sky? Butcher heard him. Butcher smiled like a man who had just been handed a match in a room full of gasoline. We find out, Butcher said. Barry moved across the city without running, not at full speed. He kept it human fast, just enough to stay ahead of cameras, ahead of patrols, ahead of the screaming Vought news vans that followed the story like hungry dogs. He ducked into an alley, leaned against a brick wall, and forced himself to breathe slow. He could hear everything. He could hear the distant traffic like a river. He could hear sirens like insects. He could hear a man on a rooftop laughing into a phone call about that new speed guy. He could also hear what mattered most. He could hear fear. Not one person. Thousands. And it didn't sound like normal city fear. It sounded like people who had learned to expect pain. Barry closed his eyes for 1 second. He pictured Iris, Joe, Cisco, Caitlin, Wally. Home. He opened his eyes again, and the alley looked like a stranger's dream. Graffiti. Trash. A Vought poster peeling off a wall. Homelander's face smiling down like it was watching him. Barry swallowed hard. Okay, he whispered to himself. Step 1. Find out where you are. He took out the little evidence notebook he always carried, even in costume. It was tucked inside a seam near his belt. Old habit. He flipped it open. The pages were blank. Barry stared at it like it might give him comfort just by existing. He wrote the first line anyway. Unknown city. Unknown universe. Hostile corporate superhuman system? He paused. That was too many big words. He crossed out a few and wrote again. New world. Big hero company. People scared. Better. A sound came from the street mouth of the alley. Soft footsteps. Not running. Not loud. Barry turned. A woman stepped into view, hands visible, hoodie up. She moved like someone trained to be careful. Barry didn't attack. He just watched. She stopped at a safe distance. Her voice was low. You saved people, she said. Back there. Barry nodded slowly. Yeah. Homelander doesn't do that, she said. Barry blinked. Homelander? Her mouth tightened. The guy in the cape. Barry took that in. Okay. She studied him. Are you trying to be famous? Barry almost laughed, but it came out like a sigh. No. Are you here to join the Seven? I don't know what that is, Barry said, honest. Her eyes narrowed. Then you really aren't from here. Barry shifted his weight. He kept his hands open. "My name is Barry," he said. "Barry Allen." She hesitated, then gave her name like it cost her something. "Annie." Barry nodded. "Annie. Okay. Can you tell me where I am?" Annie looked over her shoulder, like she expected a camera to grow out of the brick. "You're in New York," she said. "And if you stay out in the open, Vought will either put you on a poster or put you in a box." Barry's stomach sank. "Vought is the company." Annie's laugh was sharp and tired. "The company." Barry glanced at the poster behind her, Homelander smiling. "What is he?" Barry asked. Annie's eyes flicked up, then back to Barry. "He's the reason we're all scared," she said, "and the reason you need to leave." Barry shook his head. "I can't just leave people." "That's the problem," Annie said. "That's what they'll use." Barry looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't lying. She wasn't trying to sell him anything. She was warning him like a person warning someone they didn't want to see die. Barry's voice softened. "Why are you helping me?" Annie's throat moved. For a second, her brave face slipped, and something sad showed through. "Because once," she said, "I wanted to be what you look like." Barry held that sentence in his mind. Then he asked, "Do you know anyone who can help me figure this out?" The science part. The getting home part. Annie's eyes stayed on him for a beat. Then she said, "I know people who hate Vought as much as I do." Barry nodded. "Okay," Annie exhaled. "Follow me," she said. "But if you're lying—" "I'm not," Barry said. He didn't add anything else. He didn't need to. Stan Edgar watched the footage with the sound off. He sat in a clean office high above the city. The walls were glass. The view was perfect. The world looked small from up here. He watched the red blur frame by frame. He watched the impossible moment where bullets did not hit the man in red. He watched the man in red move between frames like a bad video glitch. Edgar didn't frown. He didn't look surprised. He looked thoughtful. A Vought analyst stood nearby, sweating through his suit. "We have no record of him," the analyst said. "No lab, no paper trail, no parents we can find, no medical file. Nothing." Edgar's eyes stayed on the screen. "Then he is not ours," Edgar said. "Sir," the analyst said, "Homelander wants to bring him in." Edgar finally looked away from the footage. His gaze was calm. "Homelander wants many things," Edgar said. "He wants love. He wants worship. He wants to feel safe." The analyst swallowed. "What do you want, sir?" Edgar leaned back in his chair. "I want certainty," he said. He tapped the screen once with a finger. "Find out what he eats," Edgar said. The analyst blinked. "Sir?" Edgar didn't smile. "He is a human with powers. Humans have needs. Find his habits, his patterns, his limits." He paused. "And find out," Edgar added, "if the blue speedster can touch him." The analyst's eyes widened. "A train?" Edgar nodded slightly. "Yes." The analyst hesitated. "If A-Train fails," Edgar's voice stayed even. "Then we learn," he said. He turned back to the footage. Edgar watched Barry Allen tilt his head like he could hear the whole city. Edgar's eyes narrowed the smallest amount. "Whatever you are," Edgar murmured, "you will either become an asset." He let the sentence hang. "Or a problem." The safe house smelled like old wood, strong coffee, and stress. Barry noticed all of it the second he stepped inside. His senses always ran hot, and in a place like this, every heartbeat felt loud. A man with a beard and tired eyes stood up from the table first. He didn't smile. He just looked Barry up and down, like he was checking for a gun. Mother's milk, though Barry didn't know that yet. A thin man with wild eyes and a strange softness in his face drifted closer from the kitchen area. Frenchie. The name would come later. A woman with dark eyes watched from the corner. Kimiko. Silent. Still. And then there was the man who stepped forward like he owned the room. Short hair, heavy stare, a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. Billy Butcher. Barry felt it right away. This man was dangerous without powers. Butcher looked Barry over. "All right then," he said. "Let's have a little chat, shall we?" Barry nodded. "Sure." Butcher's eyes flicked to Annie. "You sure he's clean?" Annie's jaw tightened. "He saved people," Butcher snorted. "So did Homelander once, on camera." Barry held up both hands. "Look, I get why you don't trust me," he said. "I don't even know where I am." Butcher took a step closer. "Then start with that," he said. "Where are you from?" Barry took a breath. He kept it simple, like he was talking to a kid who needed the truth without the extra stuff. "I'm from another world," Barry said. "I'm called the Flash where I'm from." Butcher blinked. "The Flash," he repeated, like he was tasting the words. Huey, sitting behind the table, let out a small sound. "He said it." Butcher's eyes cut to Huey. "Shut it," Barry continued. "My name is Barry Allen. I work with the police. I help solve cases. I got powers from a lab accident. I run fast. I try to save people." Frenchie's eyebrows lifted. "Police?" he said. "You are a cop?" Barry shook his head quickly. "Not like that. I'm a forensic scientist. I study evidence. I help catch bad guys." Butcher leaned in. "And your bad guys wear capes too?" Barry hesitated. "Some do," he admitted. Butcher's smile sharpened. "So, you're used to this nonsense?" Barry's voice stayed calm. "I'm used to people getting hurt," he said. "I'm not used to whatever that was outside." Annie nodded once. "That was Tuesday," she said. Stepped forward. "We're going to ask you some questions," he said. "You're going to answer." "No games," Barry nodded. "Okay." Huey raised a hand a little, like he was in class. Quick question. Can you, do the thing again? The bullet thing?" Barry looked at him. "Phasing?" Huey frowned. "Sure, phasing." Barry glanced at the room. "Do you have anything metal? Like a coin?" Frenchie pulled a coin from his pocket and tossed it to Barry. Barry held it between two fingers. "Watch," he said. He pushed the coin toward the wooden table. It didn't stop. It slid through the wood like the wood wasn't there. The coin dropped onto the floor underneath. Everyone stared. Huey's mouth fell open. "That is not okay." Kimiko's eyes widened a little. Not fear. Wonder. Butcher stared like he was watching a door open into a different kind of war. Rubbed his forehead. "You can do that to people," said quietly. Barry didn't deny it. "Yes," he said. Butcher's voice turned low. "Can you do it to Homelander?" Annie snapped. "Butcher!" Barry looked at Butcher. He didn't flinch. "I don't kill," Barry said. "And I don't do things to people's bodies like that unless I have no choice." Butcher smiled like he had found the edge of Barry's world. "No choice," he repeated. "Right." Barry's jaw tightened. "If someone is going to die and I can stop it, I stop it," he said. "But I don't become the monster to beat the monster." Butcher leaned back. "We'll see," he said. Sat down and opened his notebook. "All right," he said. "First, what do you know about Vought?" Barry shook his head. "Nothing," he said. "But I want to." Huey's voice came out small. "What about A-Train?" Barry blinked. "The speed guy?" Huey nodded hard. "Yeah, he's like our Flash, I guess." Barry's face tightened in a way that was almost gentle. "He's not," Barry said. "Not even close." Butcher laughed once, sharp and pleased. "Hear that?" he said to the room. "Captain Red Spandex thinks our fastest man is a joke." Annie rolled her eyes. "It's not spandex," she muttered. Barry glanced down at his suit like he had forgotten he was wearing it. It's a special fabric," he said, awkward. Never mind." That got a small breath of laughter out of Huey, even with everything going on. Barry noticed it. He held on to it. Because in this room, a tiny laugh felt like a candle in a storm. Mem tapped the table. "Focus," he said. "We need to know what you can do, and what you won't do." Barry nodded. "Okay." Frenchie slid a small case across the table. "Then we test," Frenchie said. "But gently, yes? We do not poke the lightning man too hard." Butcher smirked. "Speak for yourself." Barry took his evidence notebook out again. Butcher's eyes snapped to it. "What's that?" Barry held it up. "Notes," he said. "I work better when I write things down." Butcher stared. "We're hiding from the most powerful corporation on Earth," he said. "And you're making little arts and crafts?" Barry's cheeks warmed. "It's not crafts. It's procedure." Butcher laughed. "Procedure," he repeated, like it was the funniest word he had heard in years. Mem, for the first time, gave Barry a look that wasn't only suspicion, it was respect. Because MM understood something. This red speedster wasn't here to play hero, he was here to do the work. Annie leaned closer to Barry, voice low. "If they find you," she warned, "they won't stop." Barry nodded. "Then we don't let them find me," he said. Butcher pointed at him. "And if you become a problem," Butcher said, voice calm and cold, "we stop you too." Barry met his eyes. "You can try," Barry said softly. The room went still. Not because Barry threatened them, because Barry stated a fact, and everyone in the room felt it. But then Barry looked away, like he didn't want that power to sit between them. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "I'm just lost. And people are getting hurt." Huey swallowed. "Okay," he said, almost to himself. "This is insane." Frenchie leaned in, excited again. "Tell me," he said. "When you run, where does the energy come from?" Barry hesitated. "It's called the Speed Force," he said. "It's like an energy field. It fuels me. It's connected to time and motion." Butcher scoffed. "Speed Force," he said. "Sounds like marketing." Barry's mouth twitched. "It's not," he said. And somewhere outside, beyond the walls, the city kept moving. Barry could hear it. 1,000 small crimes. 1,000 quiet fears. He could also hear something else, faint and wrong. A tiny crackle that didn't belong to this world, like distant thunder in a clear sky. Barry's eyes lifted. His stomach tightened. He didn't say it out loud, but he thought it. "Please don't be here." A train sat in a private vault gym, sweat shining on his skin, a bottle of water crushed in his hand. The TV on the wall showed the same clip over and over, the red blur, the bullets. The way A-Train looked slow next to it, even though he wasn't even in the clip. A-Train's jaw flexed. A Vought trainer hovered nearby, nervous. "You're still the fastest, man," the trainer said. "They don't know you." A-Train slammed the bottle into the floor. Water splashed. "Don't tell me what they don't know," A-Train snapped. "I know what I saw." He stood up. He walked to the TV and paused. The frame on the red speedster suit. The symbol on the chest. The lightning. A-Train's eyes narrowed. "This dude shows up out of nowhere," A-Train said, voice low. "And everyone's already talking like he's the next big thing." The trainer tried to smile. "It's just hype. Vought will handle it." A-Train turned. "Yeah," he said. "Vought will handle it." Then his face shifted into a grin that looked like anger wearing teeth. "And I'm gonna handle it first." 2 nights later, the city screamed again. This time it wasn't a stage event. It wasn't a crowd. It wasn't a clean story Vought could smile through. was a sudden burst of chaos in the middle of a normal street. A bank alarm went off. A guard ran outside and fell like his legs forgot how to work. A woman's shopping bags hit the ground and spilled. People turned and saw blood on the pavement. Not a lot. Just enough. Enough to make the fear real. Barry heard it from the safe house. He was sitting at the table with Frenchie, trying to map the tiny electrical feel he got when he pushed his speed too high in this world. He had drawn lines. He had written times. He had started a list called Rules of New World. But the second the scream hit the air outside, Barry's body tensed. He looked up. Annie saw his face. "What?" she asked. Barry's eyes unfocused, listening to the city like it was a radio. "Someone just died," Barry said. Butcher leaned back in his chair. "Welcome to New York," he said. Barry stood. MM stepped in front of him. "No," MM said. "We talked about this. You go out there. Vought sees you. They track you. They take you." Barry's voice shook, not from fear of Vought, from anger at the helplessness. "I can stop it," Barry said. "I can stop more people from dying." Butcher's smile was thin. "And then what? You gonna run around fixing this whole rotten world by yourself?" Barry didn't answer, because a part of him wanted to. A part of him wanted to run so fast he could undo the whole thing. He gripped the edge of the table until the wood creaked. Then Annie said, "We go with him." Butcher laughed. "We?" he said. Annie's eyes were hard. "You want to use him," she said. "Fine. Then we don't let him do it alone." Butcher stared at her, then at Barry. He saw it. Barry wasn't a weapon waiting for orders. Barry was a person barely holding himself back. Butcher hated that, but he could work with it. "Fine," Butcher said. "Go play hero, but do it smart." Barry nodded once. Then he was gone. Not in a dramatic blur, not for show. He simply moved. To everyone else, the air stirred. To Barry, the world stretched open. He hit the street and sprinted, and the city became a tunnel of sound. He followed the fear like a trail. In seconds, he arrived at the bank corner. He stopped behind a car, eyes scanning. Bodies. 2 of them. Both security guards. Civilians frozen. And on the brick wall across the street, carved into the surface like someone had written with a hot knife, were 2 simple words. "Hello, Barry." Barry's blood turned cold. He knew that handwriting. He knew that cruelty. His lips parted. "No," he whispered. He felt it before he saw it. A flicker behind him. A crackle of yellow. Barry spun. A man stood in the middle of the street like he owned it. Yellow suit, red lightning. A smile that wasn't joy. It was hate that learned how to grin. Eobard Thawne. Reverse flash. Thawne raised a hand in a lazy wave. "Hi," he said, voice bright. "Did you miss me?" Barry's mind raced faster than his body. "How did you get here? How did you follow me? How did you?" Thawne leaned forward slightly, like he could hear Barry's thoughts and found them funny. "You ran," Thawne said. "You tore a hole. I stepped through. Simple." Barry's jaw tightened. "Not here," he said. "Not in this world." Thawne's smile grew. "Oh, Barry," he said. "This world is perfect." Barry shifted into a fighting stance. He kept his hands open, ready to grab, not strike. "You can't hurt these people," Barry said. Thawne tilted his head. "Can't?" he asked. "Or won't?" Barry lunged. The street exploded into motion. To the civilians, it looked like the red blur and the yellow blur smashed into each other and vanished. To Barry, it was a battle inside a heartbeat. He threw a fast jab meant to push, not break. Thawne slipped under it like water. Thawne's hand snapped up, vibrating. The killing hand. Barry caught Thawne's wrist, forced it away, and shoved him back. They hit the side of a bus so hard the metal bowed. Barry whipped his head, checking the civilians. He moved them away in a burst, sweeping people into safe spots behind cars and walls, one by one, fast enough they only felt a gust. Then he was back in front of Thawne. Thawne clapped slowly. "Still doing the rescue thing," he said. "You're so consistent. It's adorable." Barry's eyes burned. "Why are you doing this?" Thawne's grin sharpened. "Because you're here," he said, "and because I want to show you something." He vanished. Barry followed the sound of the wind tear. He found Thawne behind a woman who had tripped. She was on her knees, trying to crawl away, eyes wide. Thawne's hand was raised to strike. Barry slammed into him, shoulder first, and drove him down the street. They skidded across asphalt. Sparks flew. Barry pinned Thawne against a wall. "Stop!" Barry said through clenched teeth. Thawne's eyes glittered. "Make me," he whispered. Then Thawne's head tilted past Barry's shoulder. Barry felt it. A new set of footsteps. Fast ones. Not like Barry's. Not like Thawne's. Clumsy speed. A train arrived in a blue streak and stopped with a cocky smile, like he thought the scene was for him. He pointed at Barry. "Yo," he shouted. "There you are." Barry's eyes widened. "Go away," Barry said, fast. A-Train laughed. "Man, you don't tell me." Thawne moved. Not at Barry's level, not at full speed, but enough to exploit the distraction. Thawne slipped out of Barry's grip and shot toward A-Train. Barry's heart jumped. He chased. He reached A-Train first, grabbed his suit at the chest, and yanked him backward. A-Train yelled, "What the—" Thawne's vibrating hand passed through the air where A-Train's heart had been. A-Train went pale. For the first time in his life, he understood what it felt like to be slow. Barry shoved A-Train behind a car. "Stay down," Barry snapped. A-Train stared at him, breathing hard, ego shaking. Thawne chuckled. "He's yours?" Thawne asked. "Cute pet." Barry turned on Thawne. Lightning danced along Barry's arms. "Don't," Barry warned. Thawne spread his hands. "Don't what?" he asked. "Don't expose your little secret? That you can't be everywhere at once?" He vanished. Again. Barry ran. Thawne tore across the city like a blade, hitting places where cameras would catch the aftermath. He didn't care about money. He didn't care about plans like robbing a bank. He cared about the story. Every time Barry reached a scene, there were bodies. Not piles, not gore. Just enough. Enough to make it look like a war. Barry raced between locations, saving who he could, pulling people from falling scaffolds, stopping a taxi from crushing a man, carrying a child out of smoke. At one point, a hospital generator sputtered from overload after a city surge. Monitors beeped wrong. Nurses screamed. Barry ran into the power room and watched the whole system in a glance. He moved so fast, his hands became a blur of switches and cables. He released a controlled burst of lightning into the system. Not wild, not huge, just enough to kick it back into life. The lights steadied. A nurse stared at him, mouth open. "Who are you?" she whispered. Barry didn't answer. He was already gone. Outside, above the streets, news helicopters circled like vultures, and Vought's cameras caught clips. A red blur, a body, a scream, another body. Vought didn't show the rescues. They showed the fear. They showed enough to build a name. By the time Barry reached the third scene, a giant screen in Times Square had already switched to breaking news. A smiling anchor stood in front of Barry's blurry silhouette. "Reports are coming in of an unknown soup," the anchor said, voice tight with fake concern. "A speed-based terrorist, possibly connected to an anti-Vought extremist cell." Barry froze for half a second. Not because he was tired, because he understood what Thawne was doing. Thawne wasn't trying to beat him in a fight. Thawne was trying to turn the whole world against him. A roar split the air. Barry looked up. Homelander descended from the sky like a missile, slowing at the last moment. Wind blasted outward. People screamed and ran. Homelander's eyes locked onto Barry. His face was calm, but his gaze was sharp and hungry. "This ends now," Homelander said. Behind Homelander, A-Train arrived again, keeping a safer distance this time. His face was tight with humiliation. Barry's mind raced. He couldn't fight Homelander like he fought Thawne. Not in the open, not above civilians, not with cameras everywhere. Barry took one step back. Homelander smiled a little. "Oh," he said. "You can run, I know." Then Homelander's eyes shifted, tracking something Barry couldn't see at first. A thin yellow streak flickered behind a billboard. Barry's stomach dropped. Thawne stepped out of the blur and stood on the edge of a rooftop above them, looking down like a man watching ants. Thawne raised his voice, loud enough for the nearest cameras to pick up. "Hello, everyone," Thawne called, cheerful. "You might want to record this. It's history." Barry stared up at him. "Thawne," Barry said, low. Homelander looked between them, confused for a single moment. That moment mattered. Barry used it. He moved in a burst, not attacking, but grabbing. He swept civilians away from the open street in seconds, into doorways, behind stone planters, behind thick walls. Annie and MM arrived at the far end of the block, having followed the chaos as best they could. Their eyes widened as they saw Homelander and the two lightning blurs. Butcher's voice crackled in Annie's earpiece. "Tell me that's not two of them," Annie whispered. "It's two." MM's jaw clenched. "Then we're in bigger trouble than we thought." Barry stepped into the center of the cleared street. He looked at Homelander. "I'm not your enemy," Barry said. Homelander's smile turned sharp. "You killed people tonight," Homelander said. Barry shook his head. "No," he said. "He did." He pointed up at Thawne. Homelander's eyes narrowed. "So now there's two of you," he said. "Great. Like I needed that." Thawne laughed. "Oh, I'm not like him?" Thawne said. "I don't care about your little rules." Homelander's eyes flashed with anger. "Watch your mouth," Homelander said. Thawne leaned forward. "Make me," he said, mocking. Homelander's eyes glowed red. Barry moved instantly, stepping between Homelander's line of sight and the rooftop, because he knew what came next. Heat vision. Homelander fired. Barry vibrated, phasing the beam through himself so it didn't cut into the street behind him. The heat still hurt. It felt like standing too close to the sun for a blink. Barry clenched his teeth and stayed in place. To the cameras, it looked like Homelander shot the red speedster, and the red speedster didn't die. The crowd watching from a distance screamed again. Homelander stopped firing, eyes wide with something new. Not fear. Shock. Barry lowered his vibration and met Homelander's stare. "I'm trying to stop him," Barry said, breathing hard. "Let me." Homelander's jaw worked. He did not like anyone telling him what to do. But Thawne chose that moment to move. He zipped down from the rooftop and clipped Homelander's shoulder in a fast strike, just to insult him. Homelander's cape snapped. His body shifted slightly in the air. Homelander's eyes went wild. Thawne laughed and vanished again. Barry ran after him. The fight ripped away from Times Square and into the maze of rooftops and alleyways. Barry kept it away from people as best he could, guiding the chase like a shepherd, guiding a wolf away from a flock. Thawne didn't care. He cut through a billboard support beam as he passed. Metal groaned. Barry heard it and stopped the collapse with one hand, bracing the beam, holding it while still tracking Thawne. He let go only when the structure settled safely. That half-second cost him. Thawne appeared behind Barry, struck him in the back, and sent him flying through a rooftop door. Barry crashed into a dark stairwell. He rolled, caught himself, and stood in a blink. Thawne strolled in after him like he had all the time in the world. "You're splitting your attention," Thawne said, almost kindly. "You can't help yourself." Barry's voice was tight. "Why are you making this worse?" Thawne's grin widened. "Because you always think you can fix everything," he said. "I want you to learn you can't." Barry lunged again. This time he changed tactics. He stopped trying to hit Thawne. He started trying to trap him. Barry circled Thawne at high speed, creating a tight vortex in the stairwell, pulling air inward, limiting Thawne's movement. Dust and paper swirled. Thawne's eyes narrowed. "Smart," he said. Thawne vibrated through the wall. Barry followed, phasing after him. They spilled out onto another rooftop, the wind cold and sharp. Below them, the city glowed. Above them, helicopters hovered. Thawne spread his arms like a performer. "Look at this place," he said. "They worship the wrong monsters. They lie to themselves. They beg for heroes and get celebrities." Barry's jaw clenched. "So you're punishing them?" Thawne shrugged. "No," he said. "I'm using them, just like they use everyone." Barry's hands trembled. Lightning danced along his fingers. "Stop," Barry said again, voice breaking with anger now. "Stop hurting people to hurt me." Thawne's smile softened into something crueler. "You want the truth?" Thawne asked. "I didn't follow you here to win. I followed you here to show you a mirror." Barry frowned. Thawne pointed down at the city. "This world is honest about what it is," he said. "You are the one lying to yourself." Barry shook his head. "No," he said. "I believe people can be better." Thawne laughed. "Then prove it," he said. Thawne moved. He didn't run away. He ran through Barry, phasing into the same space for a fraction of a second, then out again. Barry felt ice in his chest, a shock, a warning. Thawne leaned in close, voice low enough only Barry could hear over the wind. "Next time," Thawne whispered, "I kill someone you can't save." Barry's eyes widened. Thawne smiled. Then yellow lightning snapped around him, and he vanished into a thin, twisting tear in the air. Like reality blinked and forgot he was there. Barry stepped forward, reaching, but it was too late. The tear sealed. The rooftop went quiet except for the distant city noise. Barry stood still, chest rising and falling fast, eyes locked on the empty air where Thawne had been. Below, sirens screamed louder. Behind him, another sound approached. Heavy, angry wind. Barry turned. Homelander hovered a few feet away, face tight with rage. A-Train stood behind him on the roof, breathing hard, eyes bright with fear and jealousy. Homelander stared at Barry like Barry was the reason the sky had rules again. "You're coming with me," Homelander said. Barry looked down at the street far below. He could hear people crying. He could hear Vogt's broadcast vans moving in. He could hear the story forming, right now, without him. Barry swallowed. He was fast enough to leave, to vanish, to disappear forever. But if he did, Thawne would keep killing, and Vogt would tell the world the red blur was a monster. Barry looked back at Homelander. "I'm not your prisoner," Barry said. Homelander's eyes glowed faint red. "You sure?" he asked. Barry's voice stayed calm, but his heart hammered. "No," Barry admitted. "I'm not sure." A-Train scoffed, trying to sound brave. "Man, you ain't special," he said. "You're just another soup." Barry glanced at A-Train, then back at Homelander. "I'm not like you," Barry said. Homelander's smile vanished. And for the first time since Barry arrived in this world, Barry felt something heavier than confusion. He felt the shape of the real war ahead, not a fistfight, not a race. War for what this world would believe, and whether a real hero could exist here without being turned into a weapon or a villain. Barry did not wait to see if Homelander's next move was a grab or a blast. He had learned something in one night. This world did not do calm talks on rooftops. Homelander hovered close, eyes bright with anger, like a child who had been told no for the first time. A-Train stood behind him, trying to look brave, but his breathing gave him away. Barry's mind ran through options in a flash. He could hit Homelander. It would not matter. Not like it mattered against normal people. Homelander was built different. Barry could run. That would work. But running without a plan just gave Vought the story they wanted. So Barry chose the third option. He made distance first. In a blink, he vibrated and dropped through the rooftop surface, passing through concrete like it was fog. He landed on the stairwell steps below, knees bent, one hand on the rail. Listened. Homelander's boots didn't move because Homelander didn't need stairs. Instead, the whole roof shook as Homelander slammed down and blew through the door. A-Train cursed and ran for the stairs, feet hitting the steps like hammers. Barry moved again. Not full speed. Controlled speed. Careful speed. He slipped down the stairwell, then out through a side exit into an alley. The city air hit him like a slap. He heard the helicopters above. He heard cameras. He heard the people, far away, screaming names he didn't know yet. And he heard Annie. Not her voice, her heartbeat. He followed it. 2 blocks over, Annie stood under a fire escape, hoodie up, eyes sharp. MM was beside her, shoulders squared. Huey was behind them, face pale, clutching a phone like it was a weapon. Barry stopped in front of them so suddenly that Huey yelped. "Jesus!" Huey started. "Barry!" Annie said fast. "We have to move! Now!" MM's gaze flicked over Barry's suit, checking for burns, cuts, anything. "You okay?" Barry nodded, breathing hard. "Thawne is here," he said. Huey's eyebrows pinched. "Thawne is the yellow one." Barry's jaw tightened. "Yes." MM didn't ask more in the open. He just pointed. "This way." Barry followed them into a service hallway, then a stairwell, then a door that looked like nothing. Inside was a cramped room that smelled like dust and old paint. Butcher waited there like he had been born in shadows. He didn't say hello. He watched Barry like Barry was a bomb with a pretty wrapper. "Well," Butcher said, voice low, "you've made a right mess." Barry's eyes flashed. "He killed people," Barry said. "Not me." Butcher shrugged like it didn't matter. "It'll be you on the news, mate," he said. "You, the mystery soup, tearing through the city. Vought will make sure of it." Annie stepped in. "He saved people too." Butcher's eyes cut to her. "They won't show that." Barry took a breath, forced his voice down. "I can fix this," he said. Butcher laughed once. "Yeah?" he said. "How?" Barry pulled out his evidence notebook, flipped it open. He had already written times and locations on the run. Bank, street corner, hospital, Times Square. He spoke as he wrote, like it helped him stay steady. "He's moving in patterns," Barry said. "He wants cameras. He wants fear. He's not stealing. He's staging." Huey stared at the page like it was magic. "You take notes while running?" Barry nodded. "It's a habit." Butcher leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Arts and crafts again," he muttered. "It's procedure," Barry said, quick and flat. Butcher smirked. "Procedure," he repeated, like it still sounded silly in his mouth. MM didn't smile, but he nodded once, like he understood that a person who writes things down is a person trying not to lose control. Barry drew a simple line across the page and made 4 marks on it. "He hit here," Barry said, tapping the first. "Then here, then here, then here." Annie watched. "He's moving toward major screens," she said. "Yes," Barry said, "and he's pulling Homelander into it." Butcher's eyes sharpened. "Good," he said. Barry looked up. "Good?" Butcher stepped back, paced once. "If the flying psycho is focused on you," Butcher said, "he's not watching us." Annie's face hardened. "That's not a plan," she snapped. "That's using him." Butcher pointed at Barry. "He's a walking miracle," Butcher said. "A proper one. Not Vought made. If there's even a chance he can put Homelander in the ground, we take it." Barry's whole body went still. "No," Barry said. The room felt smaller. Butcher stared at him. "Excuse me?" "I don't kill," Barry said, voice firm. "And I don't plan murders. Not even for monsters." Butcher's smile faded. "Mate, you don't understand. This world." Barry stepped forward. "I understand people dying," he said. "I understand fear. I understand bad guys." Butcher's eyes were ice. "Homelander isn't a bad guy," Butcher said. "He's a disaster with a smile." Barry shook his head. "Then we stop him," Barry said. "We don't become him." Butcher leaned in, low and sharp. "And how many people die while you keep your hands clean?" Barry didn't answer right away, because the question hurt, because it was the kind of question that made heroes break. cut in, voice steady. "We're not doing this in circles," said. "Barry's rule stands. No killing." Butcher opened his mouth. Held up a hand. "And before you start," said, "we've lost enough pieces of ourselves. I'm not losing the last one." Butcher's jaw worked. He looked like he wanted to smash something. Then his face shifted back to that thin, dangerous calm. "Fine," Butcher said. "No killing." Barry didn't relax. He had seen men like Butcher before. Men who agreed out loud and planned something else inside their head. Annie stepped beside Barry. "Vought is already blaming you," she said. Huey held up his phone. The screen showed a news anchor with a worried smile. Behind him was a paused shot of Barry's red blur. "Breaking unknown speed. Soup attacks NYC." A second line rolled under it. "Homelander responds to terror threat." Barry's stomach turned. "Thawne wanted this," Barry said quietly. Frenchie came in from the next room, eyes bright with stress and excitement. "They are calling you the Red Terror now," he said, waving his own phone. "They work fast." Barry clenched his hands. Lightning flickered at his fingers, then faded as he forced himself to breathe. Annie watched him closely. "You okay?" Barry shook his head. "No," he admitted. "But I'm here." Butcher pointed at Barry's notebook. "All right, Flash," he said. "If you're so clever, what's next?" Barry looked at the timeline again. Thawne's note in brick. Thawne's smile. Thawne's promise. "Next time I kill someone you can't save." Barry swallowed. "He's going to hit something personal," Barry said. "He's going to try to make me choose." Huey's voice came out small. "Like, choose who lives?" Barry nodded once. Cursed under his breath. "That's sick." Barry stared at the table for a second, then looked up. "Vought is the bigger problem," Barry said. Butcher laughed, sharp. "Now you're getting it." Barry shook his head. "Not like that," he said. "Thawne is a threat. Homelander is a threat. But Vought is the machine that keeps making threats." Annie nodded slowly. "Yes." Barry's mind shifted into work mode. Not anger mode, not panic mode. Case mode. "We need proof," Barry said. "Real proof, not clips, not rumors." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "Proof of what?" "Everything," Barry said. "Compound V, the cover-ups, the way they control the story." Frenchie's hands spread. "We have some," he said. "But it is never enough. They bury it." Barry tapped his notebook. "Then we don't give them one piece," he said. "We give them a flood." Butcher's smile returned. "A flood," he echoed, liking the sound. Barry looked at Frenchie. You said earlier my speed comes from an energy field, Barry said. The speed force. I can feel it, but it feels weak here, like the signal is far away. Frenchie nodded, eager. Yes, yes, like you were in a house with thick walls. Barry took a breath. If I can build something to help me reach it, Barry said, I might be able to open a way home. Huey blinked. Wait, you can leave? Barry nodded, eyes heavy. Maybe, but I can't just run away while Thawne is here. Annie's face tightened. If you leave, he stays. Barry nodded again. Exactly. Butcher leaned back, thinking. So, you need parts, he said, and while you're at it, we hit Vought. MM's eyes narrowed. This sounds like a suicide run. Barry shook his head. Not if we do it smart, he said. Butcher snorted. There's that word again. Barry didn't smile. We do it like a case, he said. In and out. No bodies. No show. Annie looked at him, searching his face. You're really going to try to fix this world with evidence, she said. Barry's voice was quiet. It's how I know how to fight a system, he said. For a moment, the room was still. Then Frenchie exhaled, almost laughing. Mon Dieu, he said. He is a superhero detective. Butcher rolled his eyes. Great, he muttered. Sherlock speed. Barry ignored him and kept talking. There's another thing, Barry said. When I fought Thawne, I felt something. Like the air tore. A thin seam. He used it to leave. Frenchie's expression sharpened. A tear. He said. Barry nodded. Which means my arrival didn't just bring me, Barry said. It made a doorway. MM's voice dropped, meaning more can come. Barry didn't want to say yes, but he did. Yes, Barry said. Huey swallowed hard. Okay, he whispered. That's super bad. Butcher's smile turned hungry again. Then we don't sit here, he said. We move. Barry looked down at his notebook, then up at all of them. Tonight, Barry said, we start with Vought. And somewhere far across the city, in a clean office high above the fear, Stan Edgar watched a different screen. He watched the public panic, the trending hashtags, the neat, controlled news banners. He did not look panicked. He looked like a man watching pieces slide where he expected them to slide. A vote assistant stood beside him, speaking too fast. We're pushing the narrative. Terror angle. Anti-vote extremist. The public is responding. They're calling for stricter control. Edgar nodded once. Good. And Homelander wants permission to bring the Red One in. Edgar's eyes stayed on the footage. A clip of Barry phasing through a beam. A clip of a street in chaos. A clip of people screaming. Edgar's mouth barely moved. Homelander wants to feel powerful, Edgar said. Let him chase. The assistant hesitated. Sir, if the Red One isn't ours, what is he? Edgar's gaze sharpened just a little. He's a resource, Edgar said. Or a lesson. He leaned forward slightly. Find out where he sleeps, Edgar said. Find out who he talks to. Find out what he needs. The assistant swallowed. And if we can't? Edgar's voice stayed calm. Then we change the environment, he said. Humans adapt. Soups break. He looked at the screen again. Barry's blur. The yellow blur. Edgar's eyes narrowed. 2 speed anomalies, he murmured. That is not an accident. The assistant frowned. Do you think they're working together? Edgar's lips pressed into a thin line. No, he said. I think they are enemies. He paused. And enemies, Edgar added, are useful. By the next morning, the whole city had a new bedtime story. The Red Terror. A dangerous speed soup with unknown origins. A threat that even Homelander had to face. People argued in diners and on trains. Some were scared. Some were excited. Some were angry, because fear always needed someone to blame. Victoria Newman stood at a podium with flags behind her and a steady voice. "We have a duty to protect the public," she said. "We cannot allow unregistered supes to roam freely." Her eyes were calm, her smile was small, her words were soft. But the message was clear. Control. Barry watched her speech on a tiny screen in the safe house, jaw tight. "She's using me," Barry said. Annie leaned against the wall. "She uses everything," she said. Butcher watched too, arms crossed. "That's the game," he said. "Now, you're a piece on the board." Barry looked down at his notebook again. He drew a simple box. Inside it he wrote, "Vought." Then another box. Inside it, "Newman." Then another. Inside it, "Homelander." Then he wrote one more name, smaller, like it burned the page. Thawne. Barry stared at that last name. He felt the anger trying to rise again. He forced it down. He would not give Thawne what he wanted. Instead, Barry wrote one more line beneath the boxes. "Find the truth. Protect people. Don't become the monster." Butcher glanced at the page and snorted. "You write like a Boy Scout?" Barry didn't look up. "I act like one too," he said. Butcher's smile was thin. "We'll see how long that lasts." Barry finally met his eyes. "Long enough," Barry said. "Because if I stop being me, then Thawne wins." For a second, Butcher didn't have a quick joke. He just stared. Then he turned away, like he didn't like what he felt in his chest. "Right," Butcher said. "Let's go steal from the biggest company on Earth." Barry closed his notebook, and the case began. Night came like a lid slamming shut. The city lights still glowed. The billboards still flashed. But the streets below felt tense, like the whole place was holding its breath. Barry stood in a small room with Frenchie and a mess of parts on the floor. Wires, batteries, a cracked Vought tablet, a metal frame from an old treadmill. Frenchie moved like a man building a bomb and a prayer at the same time. "You want to reach your speed force," Frenchie said, eyes shining. "You need a push, like a radio needs a stronger antenna." Barry nodded. "I can feel it," he said. It's far away, but not gone." Frenchie held up a tiny cylinder with Vought branding. "These power cells," he said. "They are strong. Not clean, but strong." Barry's mouth tightened. "So we steal them." Frenchie smiled. "Yes, we steal from the thieves." Barry glanced toward the door. He could hear Butcher pacing in the next room, impatient like a caged animal. Came in, calm, carrying a rolled-up map. He placed it on the table. "We hit a smaller Vought R&D site," said. "Not the tower. Too heavy. Too many cameras." Annie stepped in behind him. "This place supplies tech to several labs," she said. "Security is real, but it's not 7-level. Butcher walked in right after her, eyes sharp. "And," he added, "it's got a basement section nobody advertises." Barry's eyes narrowed. "A basement section?" Butcher nodded. "Secret rooms, locked doors, the place where they put things they don't want the public to see." Huey swallowed. "That sounds horrible." Butcher looked at him. "It is," he said. Barry looked at the map. He didn't like sneaking. He didn't like breaking in. But he liked innocent people dying even less. "We do it clean," Barry said. Butcher rolled. His eyes. "Here we go?" "No," Barry said, voice firm. "Listen. No guards die. No workers die. No accidents you pretend you didn't cause." Butcher's jaw flexed. "Sometimes," Barry cut him off. "No," he repeated. Nodded slowly. "Agreed," said. Annie watched Barry with something like relief. Butcher looked around and realized he was outvoted. He smiled anyway. "Fine," Butcher said. "Clean as a whistle." Barry didn't believe him. But they moved. They approached the Vought site from the service road. It looked like a normal office building from the outside. Clean walls, neat windows, a Vought logo that smiled down at the street like it belonged there. But Barry heard things behind the walls that normal buildings didn't have. Low hums, heavy doors, multiple heartbeats in a tight cluster below ground. Frenchie whispered, "There are people inside." Barry's throat tightened. "Not workers," he said. Kimiko's hands curled, slightly, like she already knew what they would find. MM checked their gear. Radios, small cameras, flash drives, a bag for evidence. Barry looked down at the bag. Evidence bag. Chain of custody. Even here, even now, his brain went back to work rules. Butcher leaned close. "You ready, Flash?" Barry nodded once. "Yes." He didn't say what he was thinking. Please don't make me choose. Barry moved first. He slipped past the outer cameras in a blink, fast enough that the video would only catch a flicker. He didn't break them. He didn't smash them. He simply avoided them. Inside a side door, he phased through the lock mechanism and turned it without leaving a mark. Annie and MM followed, then Huey, then Frenchie, then Kimiko, then Butcher last. Butcher looked around, impressed despite himself. "That's handy," he muttered. Barry ignored him. They moved through a hallway of silent offices. It smelled like clean air and money. Barry listened. 2 guards at the far end, talking about the news, laughing about the red freak. Barry's jaw tightened. He moved. 1 guard blinked, and suddenly his gun was gone, his belt zip-tied, and he was sitting on the floor with his mouth taped shut. The other guard got the same treatment. No punches, no blood, just speed and control. Huey stared. "That was actually kind of nice," he whispered. Butcher whispered back, "Don't get used to it." They reached the elevator. The basement button required a key card and a fingerprint. Barry looked at the panel, then at Annie. "You said you had access." Annie nodded, but her face was tight. "Not this access." Butcher pulled out a small device and smirked. "Lucky for us," he said. "We brought a man who can steal fingerprints at the speed of thought." Barry stared at him. "No," Barry said. Butcher sighed loud. "It's a joke," he said. "Mostly." Frenchie stepped forward, already working on the panel with a small tool. "I can bypass," he whispered. Barry watched the hall. He felt it again. Faint. Wrong electricity. Like distant thunder in a clear sky, his skin prickled. "Move faster," Barry said. Frenchie's hand sped up. "I'm going as fast as my hands allow," he hissed. Barry almost said he could do it himself, but he stopped. Because he could do everything himself. That was the trap. He had to trust. The panel clicked. The elevator doors opened. They went down. The basement air was colder. The walls were thicker. The lights were harsher. They stepped out into a corridor lined with metal doors. And behind one of those doors, Barry heard a heartbeat that sounded wrong. Too fast. Too uneven. Like an engine trying to tear itself apart. Barry moved to the door and phased his hand through the lock. Annie touched his shoulder. "Barry," she whispered. "Wait." Barry looked back at her. He could see it in her eyes. She already knew what was behind the door. Barry opened it anyway. Inside was a lab. Not a clean, bright science lab like Star Labs. This lab felt like a cage with machines. A man sat strapped to a chair, thin, shaking, eyes wide. His veins looked dark under his skin. His chest rose and fell too fast, like he couldn't get enough air. Tubes ran into his arms. A monitor screamed soft warnings. On the far wall, glass containers held small coils and metal rods. And in one container, Barry saw it. A faint red-gold crackle. Speed Force lightning. His lightning. Barry's stomach dropped. Frenchie whispered, "They collected it." MM's voice went low and angry. "They're trying to copy you." Butcher smiled, cold. "Of course they are." The man in the chair lifted his head, his eyes locked onto Barry's red suit, and something hungry lit up in them. "You," the man rasped. "You're the reason. My blood burns." Barry stepped forward. "What did they do to you?" Barry asked. The man laughed, but it sounded like pain. "They said I could be faster," he said. "They said I could be real." Annie's face hardened. "What?" she whispered. Barry looked at the tubes, the bruises, the shaking hands. He felt anger surge, not at the man, at the people who put him here. "Okay," Barry said, voice steady. "We're getting you out." The man's breathing changed. His fingers twitched. Barry felt it a split second before it happened. Speed. Not clean Speed Force speed. A messy, unstable speed. The man ripped free of one strap, then another, not because he was strong, because his body started vibrating, tearing the material apart. The lights flickered. The monitors screamed louder. Frenchie shouted, "He's going to blow!" Barry stepped closer. "Hey," Barry said, loud but calm. "Look at me. Focus on my voice." The man's eyes jumped around. "I can't stop," he gasped. "I can't." He vanished. A shockwave of air hit them. A metal tray slammed into the wall. Annie threw her arms up, light, flaring instinctively. MM pulled Huey behind him. Kimiko moved like a shadow, ready. Barry stood still. He listened. He tracked the sound of frantic feet, the scrape of shoes on tile, the ragged breathing. The man appeared on the ceiling, clinging for a fraction of a second, then bounced off, wild. Barry moved. He didn't chase like it was a race. He cut angles. He predicted. He placed himself where the man would be. When the man slammed into him, Barry absorbed the impact and guided it, turning the crash into a controlled fall. They hit the floor. Barry pinned him gently, but firmly, using speed to lock the man's wrists in a safe position. "Breathe," Barry said. "Breathe. You're not going to die here." The man shook under him, eyes wet, voice breaking. "It hurts," he whispered. Barry's throat tightened. "I know," Barry said, even though he didn't. Not like this. He had powers. This man had torture. Barry looked at Frenchie. "Get the tubes off him," Barry said. "Carefully." Frenchie rushed in, hands shaking with focus. "Yes, yes," he said. Butcher moved toward the wall container with the lightning, eyes gleaming. Barry snapped, "Don't touch that." Butcher paused, then smiled. "Relax," he said. "I'm not stupid." Barry didn't reply, because Butcher was smart. That was the problem. Frenchie freed the man from the tubes. Annie held his head, speaking softly, trying to keep him calm. The man's trembling slowed. For a moment it worked. Then the alarms changed. A deeper alarm. A lockdown alarm. Red lights flashed. A voice came over the speakers, smooth and cold. "Unauthorized access detected," it said. "All security teams respond." MM cursed. "We're out of time." Barry grabbed the evidence bag and started collecting. Files, data drives, labels, anything that proved what this place was. He moved fast, but careful. He took photos with a small camera Huey held out because Huey's hands were too slow and too shaky. Huey whispered, "I can't believe I'm doing this." Barry said, "You're doing great," and meant it. Then Barry felt it again. That wrong crackle. Yellow lightning. Faint, like a laugh in the air. Barry turned and saw, for a split second, a blur of yellow near the door panel. A guard outside screamed. Barry's eyes widened. "Thawne," he breathed. Annie stiffened. "What?" Barry didn't have time to explain. The door to the corridor burst open. Not with a guard. with heat. The metal frame glowed red, then warped. A shadow filled the doorway. Homelander stepped into the hall beyond the lab like he had walked out of a nightmare. His eyes were calm. Too calm. His smile was gone. "What is this?" Homelander asked, voice low. Butcher's face turned into stone. "Oh, brilliant," he muttered. "He found us." MM's hand tightened on his weapon, but he didn't raise it. He knew it wouldn't matter. Homelander looked into the lab. Hibor saw the strapped chair. He saw the machines. He saw the man on the floor breathing hard. He saw Annie. His eyes flicked to her, cold. "Starlight," he said. Annie's chin lifted. "Homelander." Then Homelander's gaze landed on Barry. His lips curled slightly. "And the Red Terror," Homelander said. "Right where I want you." Barry stepped forward, placing himself between Homelander and the others, without thinking. "I'm not your enemy," Barry said. Homelander laughed once, without joy. "You really like saying that," he said. The unstable speedman on the floor looked up at Homelander, eyes wide with fear. Homelander barely noticed him. Homelander's eyes stayed on Barry, like Barry was the only thing in the room that mattered. "You made me look stupid," Homelander said softly. Barry kept his voice even. "I was stopping a killer." Homelander's head tilted. "A killer?" he asked. "Or your friend in yellow?" Barry's chest tightened. Homelander smiled again, slow and sharp. "Because I have cameras outside," Homelander said, "and I have a story ready." Butcher's voice went low. "Of course you do." Barry's mind worked fast. He couldn't fight Homelander here. Not with Annie, MM, Huey, Frenchie, Kimiko, and a broken test subject behind him. So Barry did what he always did. He protected people first. Barry turned his head slightly. "Mom," he said, low, "take them out." MM hesitated. "And you?" Barry didn't look away from Homelander. "I'll buy time," Barry said. Butcher scoffed. "Hero stuff," he muttered. Barry glanced at him for half a second. "Get them out," Barry said. Then Barry moved, not as an attack, as a distraction. He zipped past Homelander in a tight circle, creating a rush of air that made Homelander's cape snap and the loose equipment clatter. Barry ran fast enough to blur, but not so fast that the whole building shook. Homelander's eyes narrowed, tracking him. Heat gathered. Barry timed it. When Homelander fired, Barry phased through the beam again, letting it cut only empty air, while using the moment to shove a heavy metal cabinet into the path of the beam so it melted into a wall instead of slicing toward his friends. The cabinet crashed. Sparks flew. The alarm screamed louder. In that confusion, MM grabbed Huey and pulled him toward the door. Frenchie followed with the evidence bag. Kimiko lifted the unstable speedman like he weighed nothing. Annie stayed back, eyes on Barry. Barry shook his head once at her. "Go." Annie's jaw tightened. She didn't want to leave him, but she did. She turned and ran with them. Homelander's eyes flicked past Barry to the escaping group. His face darkened. Barry knew what came next. Barry ran up the wall, straight vertical, like the floor didn't matter. He hit the ceiling, vibrated through it, and came down behind Homelander. Barry shoved Homelander, not to hurt him, but to move him. Homelander slid a few feet, boots scraping. It was the first time Barry had ever touched someone that strong and felt like he had pushed a mountain. Homelander twisted, furious. Barry didn't wait. He grabbed Homelander's cape and yanked it hard, using speed and angle to wrap it around Homelander's arm for half a second. Just half a second. Enough to delay. Enough to keep Homelander from firing at the hallway where his friends were escaping. Homelander tore free and slammed his fist into the floor. The whole room shook. A chunk of ceiling cracked. Barry's eyes widened. If the ceiling fell, it could crush everyone in the corridor. Barry moved instantly, racing into the hallway, checking positions, bracing weak points with quick hands, shifting falling debris away from where his team was running. He did it in short bursts, like putting out fires. But every second he spent on debris was a second Thawne could use to make things worse. Barry heard it again. Yellow lightning, closer now. A whisper of a laugh. He turned, and for a blink, he saw Thawne at the far end of the corridor, leaning against a wall like he was watching a show. Thawne's eyes met Barry's. Thawne smiled. Then he vanished. Barry's stomach dropped, because that smile meant Thawne had already done something. Barry looked back at Homelander. Homelander wasn't smiling anymore. He was staring at Barry like he wanted to tear him apart and hang the pieces in the sky. "This is my world," Homelander said, voice shaking with anger. "You don't get to come here and play hero." Barry breathed hard. "People aren't toys," Barry said. Homelander's eyes glowed bright red. Barry made a choice in a blink. He ran, not away, not to hide. He ran to lead Homelander away from the building. Barry shot out through a broken side door and into the night air. He moved fast enough to be a red streak across the rooftop edge. Homelander followed like a missile, ripping through the wall to chase him. Barry kept the chase over empty rooftops, away from crowded streets. He heard his team's footsteps fading into the distance below. Good. Then Homelander caught up enough that Barry felt heat at his back. Barry dove off the roof. Homelander went after him, confident. Barry hit the side of the building, ran down it, then phased through a window into a dark office, cutting a sudden angle. Homelander slammed into the outside wall, confused for half a second. That half second was all Barry needed. Barry ran back out, up and away, using the city like a maze. He didn't beat Homelander in strength. He beat him in space. Homelander hovered above a different rooftop, looking around, rage boiling. Barry stopped 3 rooftops away, hidden behind a billboard, breathing hard. He could still hear Homelander. He could hear Homelander shouting orders into an earpiece. He could hear helicopters shifting position. He could hear a new story being born. Barry closed his eyes for 1 second. He thought about the people they had rescued. He thought about the evidence in the bag. He thought about the man in the chair. Then he opened his eyes and ran, not to fight, but to reunite. They regrouped in a different safe place, deeper and darker than the first. Frenchie dumped the evidence bag onto the table like it was a treasure chest. Huey stared at the files, wide-eyed. "We actually did it," he whispered. MM looked at Barry. "You held him off." Barry shook his head. "I delayed him," Barry said. "That's all." Annie stepped closer, eyes tight. "He'll come harder now," she said. Barry nodded. "I know." Kimiko helped the unstable speed man onto a mattress on the floor. He was shaking, but alive. His eyes were closed, tears drying on his cheeks. Frenchie held up a small metal container with a faint red-gold flicker inside. "We got a sample," he said softly. "Your lightning." Barry stared at it, sickened. "They're mixing it," Barry said. Butcher leaned against the wall, arms crossed, looking almost pleased. "Told you," he said. "Vought sees a miracle and thinks, how do we bottle it?" Barry pulled out his notebook again. Butcher groaned. "Oh, for—" Barry ignored him and wrote in big letters. "Vought is trying to copy Speed Force." Then he underlined it twice. Barry looked up at them. "This changes everything," Barry said. MM nodded. "Yeah," MM said. "Now it's not just about you." Barry's voice was quiet but strong. "It never was," Barry said. And somewhere, high above, Stan Edgar watched a feed of Homelander's ruined hallway and the stolen files. Edgar didn't shout. He didn't panic. He simply made a call and spoke 1 sentence. "Begin Phase 2, he said. Then, in a shadowed corner of the city, Eobard Thawne smiled to himself. Because the board was set, and Barry Allen was exactly where Thawne wanted him, caught between saving people and fighting a world that didn't want saving. 2 weeks passed, and the city learned a new kind of fear. Not the loud fear that came with explosions and screaming crowds. This was a quiet fear. The kind that sat in people's chests when they looked at a billboard and didn't know what was true anymore. Vought ran the same clips every day. A red blur, a yellow blur, a broken street, a terrified crowd. They didn't show the rescues. They didn't show the hands pulling people out of smoke. They didn't show the generator starting up again in the hospital. They showed chaos. They showed Barry as a question mark. Barry tried not to watch, but the city's sound carried it anyway. He would be on a rooftop, scanning with his ears, and he would hear a TV through an open window. The Red Terror, still at large. He would be in an alley, putting a mugger's knife in a trash can so nobody got hurt, and he would hear a radio from a parked car. Unregistered soup threat. Every time Barry's jaw tightened. Every time he kept running. He made a routine because routine kept him sane. He ran short loops at night. He listened for screams that weren't just city noise. He followed the ones that meant someone would die if nobody came. He didn't pose. He didn't talk to cameras. He showed up like a gust of wind, and left like one too. Sometimes he stopped a soup from hurting someone in a dark hallway, then disappeared before the victim could even say thank you. Sometimes he carried an injured person to a hospital entrance and laid them down right under a bright light so nurses would see them. And every time he could, he did the same strange thing that made Butcher roll his eyes. He collected evidence, a broken vial, a torn badge, a Vought access card dropped in a rush. Barry slipped them into little bags. He wrote the time, he wrote the place, he wrote like it mattered, because to him, it did. Back at the safe place, his board grew. Not a big fancy board like in movies, just a wall with paper taped up, in straight lines, notes in clean handwriting, and arrows showing who connected to who. Huey stared at it one night and said, voice half amazed, "It's like you're building a map out of lies." Barry nodded. "That's what it is," he said. Butcher walked in, saw the neat rows, and groaned like it physically hurt him. "For the love of," Butcher muttered, "you even got the strings." "It helps," Barry said. "It's arts and crafts," Butcher said. "It's procedure," Barry said, without looking up. hid a tiny smile behind his hand. Annie didn't smile. She looked at the wall like it was a lifeline, because it wasn't just about Barry anymore. It was about the people in the basement. The test subject they had pulled out of the chair, his name was Caleb, stayed with them while they found somewhere safer for him to go. He slept in short bursts. He woke up shaking. Sometimes his feet twitched, like they wanted to run even when he didn't. Barry sat with him on the worst nights, not as a doctor, not as a boss, just as someone who understood what it meant to have power in your body that you didn't ask for. Caleb stared at Barry once, eyes red from sleeplessness. "Am I a monster?" he whispered. Barry's throat tightened. "No," Barry said. "You're hurt. That's different." Caleb swallowed hard. "It feels like fire." Barry nodded. "Then we take it one breath at a time," he said. "One small step at a time. You don't have to run until you're ready." Sometimes that was all Barry could give, and it still felt like not enough, because Thawne didn't stop. He didn't kill in big crowds anymore. He got smarter. He started leaving little gifts. A broken door lock at a crime scene that made it look like Barry broke in. A Vought security guard knocked out with a red scorch mark nearby, like lightning had hit him. A whispered rumor from anonymous sources that the Red Terror was working with terrorists. Barry could hear the lie spreading before he even saw it. Thawne was building a cage out of stories, and Homelander was the dog Vought kept pointing at the cage door. The first offer arrived on a rainy Tuesday when the city smelled like wet concrete and anxiety. Barry was alone on a rooftop, watching traffic patterns and listening for the sharp sounds that meant someone needed help. His phone buzzed. It wasn't his phone, really. It was a burner device Frenchie had forced into his hand, with a warning. Barry looked down. One message. Come talk. No cameras. No games. S.E. Barry's chest tightened. Stan Edgar, he whispered. He didn't tell anyone at first. Not because he didn't trust them. Because he did trust them. And that made him careful. If this was a trap, Barry wanted it to be his problem, not theirs. So he went. He moved through the city in a way that didn't look like running. He took slow, quiet paths between shadows and rooftops. Arrived at a private office floor that was too clean to feel real. The door was unlocked. Barry stepped inside. Stan Edgar sat at a desk, like he had been waiting for him for years. No cape, no fear. Just calm eyes and a glass of water. Edgar gestured to the chair across from him. Please, he said. Barry didn't sit. He stayed standing, hands loose at his sides, ready to move. Edgar didn't seem bothered. You're not one of ours, Edgar said. Barry's stomach twisted. No, Edgar nodded once. Good, he said. That means you can be controlled by something other than money. Barry blinked. I don't want your money. I know, Edgar said. That's why you're dangerous. Barry's jaw tightened. I'm trying to save people. Edgar's voice stayed smooth. And you are, he said. Quietly. Efficiently. Inconveniently. Barry didn't like how Edgar said it. Edgar slid a folder across the desk. Vought can make this easy, he said. A public introduction. A proper name. A narrative that protects you instead of hunts you. Barry stared at the folder, but didn't touch it. Edgar continued. We can give you labs, equipment, a place to work, help finding the way home. Barry's eyes narrowed. And what do you get? Edgar didn't hesitate. You, he said. Your image, your story, your cooperation. Barry shook his head. That's not help, he said. That's ownership. Edgar's eyes stayed steady. You're in my world, he said. Ownership is how things survive. Barry's voice went hard. People aren't products. Edgar's mouth moved slightly, not quite a smile. That's a lovely belief, he said. It will get you killed here. Barry felt anger rise again, hot and fast. He forced it down. He leaned forward just a little. If you really wanted to protect people, Barry said, you wouldn't be running Vought. Edgar took a slow sip of water. Didn't ask you to like me, he said. I asked you to be smart. Barry straightened. I am being smart, he said. I'm not signing myself into a cage. Edgar's gaze sharpened. Then you'll have to accept what comes next, he said. Barry frowned. What comes next? Edgar set the glass down. A controlled environment, he said. An event, a broadcast, a public capture, something the world can understand. Barry's skin prickled. Edgar's voice stayed calm. You can run, he said, but you can't run forever. Not from a system. Barry stared at him for a long moment. Then Barry said the truth, plain and simple. I'm not running from you, Barry said. I'm running toward the people you hurt. Edgar didn't flinch. Then we're in conflict, he said. Barry nodded once. Yeah, Barry said. He left without touching the folder. When he was gone, Edgar's office remained quiet. Edgar didn't look angry. He looked like a man confirming a prediction. A second offer came from Victoria Newman 2 days later, but it didn't come as a message. It came as a speech. Barry stood in a dark hallway of the safe place, watching her on a small screen while the others listened. Newman spoke about safety, about laws, about protecting families. Then her eyes hardened slightly. "We will not allow unknown soups to terrorize our communities," she said. "We will build systems that keep us safe." Barry's stomach tightened. Huey whispered, "She's talking about you." MM's voice was low. "She's talking about control." Butcher leaned close to Barry, voice like a blade. "Told you," he said. "They don't want heroes. They want pets." Barry didn't answer, because his eyes were on Newman's face. Her smile was too perfect. Her calm felt wrong. And in the back of Barry's mind, a warning bell kept ringing. This woman wasn't just politics. She was something else. And then came Homelander's offer. It arrived with a boom of wind and an explosion of glass. Barry was on a rooftop again, listening for trouble, when Homelander dropped out of the sky and landed like he wanted the city to feel his weight. Homelander didn't attack right away. He smiled. "Barry," he said, using the name like he owned it. Barry's eyes narrowed. "How do you know my name?" Homelander shrugged. "Vought knows everything," he said. "We learn fast." Barry's chest tightened. Homelander stepped closer, voice almost friendly. "I've been thinking," he said. "You and me, we're the top now." Barry didn't move. "No," he said. Homelander blinked, like he wasn't used to hearing that. "You don't even know what I'm offering," Homelander said. Barry's voice was steady. "Yes, I do," he said. "Control. Fame. A leash made out of applause." Homelander's smile twitched. "It's not a leash if you like it," he said. Barry shook his head. "I don't," he said. Homelander's eyes glowed faint red. "You're making this harder," Homelander said softly. Barry's hands clenched, then relaxed. "I'm not your soldier," he said. "I'm not your friend, and I'm not your enemy." Homelander's smile vanished. "Everybody's my enemy eventually," he said. Barry held his ground. "Then you're going to have a lonely life," Barry said. For a second, Homelander looked like he might explode. Then he leaned in close, voice low and sharp. "This city will beg me to put you down," Homelander whispered. "And when they do, I'll enjoy it." Barry's stomach turned. Homelander shot back into the sky and vanished into the clouds like a threat turning into weather. Barry stood alone on the rooftop, rain starting to fall again. He breathed in. Slow. He exhaled. And then yellow lightning cracked behind him like a joke. Barry spun. Thawne stood there, hands in the air, smiling like he was at a party. "You're making enemies," Thawne said brightly. "I'm so proud." Barry's eyes burned. "Get out of my life," Barry said. Thawne's smile widened. "I can't," he said. "You're my hobby." Barry took a step forward. "You're going to stop hurting people," Barry said. Thawne tilted his head. "And how will you enforce that?" he asked. "With your rules." Barry's voice went quiet. "With my choices," he said. Thawne's grin sharpened. "Choices," he echoed. "Good. Let's talk about your favorite choice." Barry's heart tightened. "No," he said. Thawne moved closer, not even running, just walking, like he enjoyed how tense Barry was. "You could fix everything," Thawne whispered. "One run, one mistake undone, one timeline cleaned up." Barry's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Thawne's eyes glittered. "You know it," Thawne said. "You feel it every time someone dies, and you get there 1 second too late." Barry's hands shook, not with fear, with temptation, because the Speed Force touched time, and Barry knew what it meant to want a second chance. Barry stared at Thawne and forced himself to say the truth. "I don't trust myself with that," Barry said. Thawne laughed softly. "That's the saddest thing about you," he said. "You're strong enough to break worlds, and you still act like a kid scared of the stove." Barry's eyes narrowed. "I'm scared of burning people," Barry said. Thawne's smile faded for a blink, replaced by something colder. "Then let's heat things up," he said. Yellow lightning snapped. Thawne vanished, and the city screamed again. Not scattered screams. A single, loud panic rising from one place. Barry listened, eyes wide. He heard chanting voices, a crowd. He heard a stage, speakers, a huge broadcast setup. Frenchie's voice crackled in Barry's ear. "Barry, Vought is doing a live event at the Tower Plaza." Annie's voice followed, tight. "They're calling it the safety announcement. Newman is there. Homelander is there." MM's voice came next. "It's a trap," Butcher added, like he was enjoying it. "Course it is. And we're walking in anyway." Barry's stomach dropped. Edgar had warned him. A controlled environment. A public capture. Barry didn't ask if they should go. He went. He became a red streak in the rain, racing toward the Vote Tower Plaza. As he ran, he listened. He heard something else beneath the crowd noise. A faint, wrong crackle. Thawne was already there. The plaza was lit like a festival. Huge lights. Giant screens. A stage with flags and smiling Vote branding. Thousands of people stood behind barriers, many holding phones high, eyes hungry for a show. Newman stood at the center podium, calm as ever. Homelander hovered above the stage like a guardian angel made of ego. Security was everywhere. Too much security. Barry's skin prickled. He felt it in the air. A trap made for him. Frenchie and Huey were in a control van half a block away, hidden behind a line of supply trucks. Annie and MM moved through the crowd in hoodies, faces down, slipping between bodies. Kimiko stayed close to Butcher, silent and ready. Barry didn't go straight in. He circled the plaza once at super speed, mapping everything. He saw the small devices hidden under stage edges. He saw the unusual wires. He saw metal mesh layered beneath the platform. Speed dampeners. Not true ones. Not enough to stop Barry, but enough to slow him if he got careless. Vought had built a net, and they wanted him to step into it on camera. Barry's jaw tightened. On the giant screen, Newman's voice rang out. "We will not live in fear," she said. "We will take control of our future." The crowd cheered. Barry heard it and felt sick, because he could hear the fear inside the cheering too. He saw Butcher slip behind a supply truck, eyes locked on the stage like a sniper's. Barry appeared, beside him in a blink. "Don't," Barry said. Butcher didn't flinch. "You gonna stop me?" he muttered. Barry's voice stayed low. "Yes," he said. Butcher's jaw tightened. "Homelander deserves it." Barry's eyes were steady. "Maybe," Barry said. "But not like this. Not with a crowd. Not with you becoming the thing you hate." Butcher's mouth twisted. "You don't get it." Barry leaned in close. "I do," Barry said. "I get it so much it scares me." Butcher stared at him for a long beat. Then Butcher looked away and spat onto the wet pavement. "Fine," Butcher said. "For now." Barry didn't relax. He kept listening. And then he heard it. A woman's terrified breathing on the far side of the plaza. A child crying. Security yelling. Barry's eyes widened. Vought wasn't just doing a speech. They had hostages. Barry moved so fast, he became a whisper of red between raindrops. He found them behind a decorative wall near the stage. A family. A mother holding her son tight. 2 security guards, protecting them while keeping them trapped. The mother's eyes were wide and wet. "Please," she whispered. They said, if we run." Barry crouched, voice gentle. "I'm going to get you out," he said. The guards turned and reached for their weapons. Barry took the weapons before their fingers even closed. He zip-tied their wrists and sat them down against the wall. No punches. No blood. Procedure. Then Barry looked at the mother. "When I move you, it will feel like a gust of wind," he said. "Close your eyes. Hold him tight." The mother nodded, shaking. Barry lifted them both and carried them away in a blink. Placing them behind a thick concrete support far from the stage, the child stared at Barry with huge eyes. "Are you a superhero?" he whispered. Barry swallowed. "I'm trying," Barry said. He stood to leave, and yellow lightning snapped right in front of him. Thawne appeared, smiling like he had been waiting. "Nice rescue," Thawne said. "Very on brand." Barry's voice went flat. "This ends tonight," he said. Thawne's eyes glittered. "Oh, it ends," he said. "But not the way you want." Thawne flicked his gaze toward the stage. Barry followed the look. On the giant screen, Newman stepped aside. Homelander floated down and landed on the stage with a heavy thud. The crowd erupted. Homelander raised a hand for silence, and the crowd actually quieted. His voice boomed through the speakers. "My fellow Americans," Homelander said, smiling. "Tonight, we remove a threat." Barry's stomach dropped. A camera drone floated above the crowd, its lens scanning. Barry felt it lock onto him. Vought had already found him. Homelander's eyes turned, sweeping the plaza. They landed on Barry. Homelander smiled wider. "There he is," Homelander said. The crowd surged, phones lifting, voices rising in confusion and fear. Barry could feel the story snapping into place like a trap closing. Thawne leaned close to Barry's ear, voice sweet as poison. "Now you're the monster," he whispered. "Now you either run, or you fight on camera." Barry's hands clenched. He heard Annie in his ear. "Barry, the upload is ready," she whispered. "We just need 30 seconds on the main feed." Frenchie's voice cut in. "We can hijack the screen, but only if the security system is distracted." MM added, "We can't get close. Too many eyes." Barry looked at Thawne. Then he looked at Homelander. Then he looked at the crowd. 1,000 hearts. 1,000 fragile bodies. Barry made a choice. He didn't charge the stage. He didn't try to win a fight. He created a window. He vanished in a red streak and reappeared at the stage edge, just long enough to rip the hidden dampener devices out of their slots and toss them into the air above the plaza. They sparked and popped harmlessly, like fireworks. The crowd gasped and pointed. Security shouted and surged. Homelander's head snapped down, furious. "What did you do?" Homelander snarled. Barry didn't answer. He ran. He circled the stage at extreme speed, not to hurt anyone, but to create a wall of wind and noise that confused cameras and forced security to step back. The banner snapped. Rain whipped sideways. Microphones screeched. In the van, Frenchie's eyes went wide. "Now!" he shouted. Huey slammed a key. The giant screen behind Homelander flickered. Newman's calm face vanished. A file folder appeared, stamped with internal Vought codes. Then another. Then a video clip from the basement lab. A strapped chair, a shaking man, tubes, a container holding crackling lightning. The crowd went silent in a way that felt like the whole city stopped breathing. Homelander turned slowly. His smile froze. Annie's voice came through Barry's ear, trembling. "It's live," she whispered. "It's all live." Vaught's feed tried to cut. Frenchie shouted, "They are fighting me!" Huey's hands shook on the keyboard. I can't hold it!" Barry heard the panic in Huey's heartbeat and knew what would happen if they lost this moment. So Barry did something risky. He ran straight into the broadcast infrastructure under the stage. He phased through metal plates and cables, following the signal path by sound and instinct. He found the main switch point and physically held 2 sparking connectors in place with vibrating hands, keeping the current flowing just long enough. It hurt. The heat bit into his fingers. Barry clenched his teeth and held on anyway. Above him, Homelander roared. The scream was loud enough to shake the stage. On the screen, more proof rolled. Emails, orders, payments, names. The words "speed sample" appeared in a vote memo. The words "Phase 2" flashed in a report. The crowd began to yell, some in anger, some in denial, some in fear. Newman stepped forward, face tight, trying to regain control. "This is a terrorist manipulation," she began. But the crowd had seen the chair. They had seen the man. They had seen the lightning. You couldn't unsee a cage. Barry released the connectors and shot back up to the plaza. Thawne was waiting. He slammed into Barry in a burst of yellow lightning, driving him across wet pavement. Barry rolled, recovered in an instant, and launched forward. Now, he didn't hold back in speed. Not in power. In focus. Barry and Thawne became two storms ripping across the plaza edge and up onto the rooftops around it, because Barry refused to let their fight crush the crowd. Thawne laughed as they ran. "You always pull it away," he called. "You always protect them." Barry's voice was tight. "That's what heroes do," he shot back. Thawne snapped his vibrating hand toward Barry's chest. Barry caught the wrist, forced it away, and drove his shoulder into Thawne, sending him through a rooftop billboard. Metal shrieked. Thawne vanished and reappeared behind Barry, striking at his ribs. Barry twisted, phased, and let the hit pass through him. Then Barry did something new. He stopped chasing. He predicted. He planted himself at the one place Thawne would have to pass if he wanted to return to the plaza and ruin the broadcast. Thawne hit that point at full speed, and Barry grabbed him, not with strength, with timing. Barry locked his arms around Thawne and ran, not across rooftops. Up, straight up into the storm clouds, lightning snapping around them. Thawne snarled. "What are you doing?" Barry's teeth clenched. "Ending your doorway," Barry said. He pushed harder, reaching for that distant signal he had been building toward for weeks. The speed force felt faint here, but it was not gone. Barry had the sample. Frenchie had built the frame, and Barry had learned the feel of the tears Thawne used. Barry pulled on that feeling now, like grabbing the edge of a rip in fabric. The air ahead of them shimmered. A thin seam appeared, twisting like a wound in the sky. Thawne's eyes widened. "You can't," Thawne hissed. Barry's voice shook. "Watch me," he said. Thawne fought like a cornered animal. He kicked. He tried to vibrate free. He tried to slide his hand into Barry's chest. Barry kept his grip and rotated, using speed and angle, never giving Thawne the line he needed. Then Thawne did the one thing Barry feared. He whispered, right into Barry's ear. "Your mother," Thawne said. Barry's whole body flinched. His grip almost loosened. Thawne smiled, sensing it. "One run," Thawne breathed. "You can save her. You can save everyone. You can fix this world too." Barry's eyes burned. The temptation hit like a wave. The Speed Force seam in front of them pulsed, inviting and dangerous. Barry could feel it. He could do it. He could run back. He could change everything. Barry's hands trembled. And then he heard something else. Not Thawne's voice. A child's voice from earlier, echoing in his head. "Are you a superhero?" Barry swallowed. He didn't want to be a god. He wanted to be a hero. And heroes didn't get to fix everything. They chose what not to break. Barry tightened his grip. "No," Barry said, voice breaking. "Not like this." He slammed Thawne into the seam. Yellow lightning exploded. Thawne screamed, not in pain, but in fury. The seam swallowed Thawne like a door snapping shut. Barry reached in for one last second, fingers straining. Thawne's hand almost caught his wrist. Thawne's face was twisted with hate. "See ya," Thawne snarled. Then the seam snapped closed. Barry shot backward through the clouds, tumbling, lightning fading around him. He caught himself in the air, hovering for a split second, only because he was falling so fast he could stand on the air's resistance. Then he ran down the side of a building and back toward the plaza. Below, the plaza was chaos. Not like the chaos Vought wanted. Real chaos. People shouting at security. People pointing at screens still showing the basement footage. People crying. People arguing. Homelander stood on the stage, face red with rage. The broadcast had cut, but it didn't matter. Too many phones had recorded it. Too many eyes had seen it. Homelander's head snapped toward Barry as Barry reached the stage edge. Homelander's eyes glowed bright red. "You," Homelander said, voice shaking. Barry's chest heaved. "This isn't about me," Barry said. Homelander laughed, wild and sharp. "Everything is about me," he screamed. He fired heat vision. Barry vibrated and phased, letting the beam pass through him without cutting into the crowd behind. But the beam kept going, carving into metal supports and sending shards down. Barry moved instantly, catching falling pieces, redirecting them, pulling people back from danger in quick bursts. Homelander didn't stop. He aimed at the crowd. Barry's heart dropped. Barry appeared in front of Homelander in a red flash and shoved Homelander's aim upward. The beam sliced into the sky. Barry's voice went hard. "No," he said. Homelander's eyes widened with something like disbelief. "Did you just touch me?" Homelander hissed. Barry didn't flinch. "Yes," Barry said, "and I'll do it again." Homelander lunged. Barry slipped aside, not because Homelander was slow, but because Barry had already mapped the movement. Homelander's fist smashed into the stage and cracked it. Barry used the moment to do something humiliating. He grabbed Homelander's cape and yanked it off in one clean pull. The cape ripped free and fluttered down into the rain like a fallen flag. The crowd gasped. Homelander froze, staring at the empty space behind his shoulders like someone had ripped off his skin. Barry didn't smile. He just looked at him with tired eyes. "You're not a god," Barry said. "You're a man who scares people." Homelander's face twisted. He didn't chase Barry. He turned to the crowd instead, desperate. He raised his hands like a performer trying to get applause back. "Don't listen," Homelander shouted. "That footage is fake. I protect you." The crowd didn't cheer. Some booed. Some screamed. Some just stared, shaken. Barry felt a strange ache in his chest because he knew what came next. Vought wouldn't vanish. Newman wouldn't confess. Homelander wouldn't become good. But the lie had cracked, and that mattered. Barry stepped back from the stage. He felt Butcher's heartbeat nearby. He turned and saw Butcher on the edge of the crowd, eyes locked on Homelander, hand twitching near his jacket. Barry appeared beside him instantly. "Don't," Barry said again. Butcher's eyes were glassy with hate. "Now's the moment," he whispered. Barry shook his head. "Not like this," Barry said. "Not with kids watching. Not with the world turning you into what you hunt." Butcher stared at Barry for a long beat. Then Butcher's hand lowered. Slow. "Fine," Butcher said, voice rough. "You win this one." Barry didn't celebrate. He just exhaled, because even in victory, this world stayed heavy. Barry looked back at the stage. Homelander was still there, shaking with rage, trying to pull the story back into his hands. Barry could stop him for a moment. He could embarrass him again. He could outrun him all night. But he couldn't fix this with one fight. So Barry did the only thing that felt honest. He turned away and listened for the next scream. He ran, not away from the war, toward the people inside it. Later, when the rain eased into a quiet drizzle, Barry sat on the edge of a rooftop above the city. He wasn't in costume anymore, just a hoodie and jeans, the suit tucked away like a secret. Below him, sirens still wailed, but the pattern had changed. It wasn't only fear now. It was movement. People gathering. People talking. People arguing. The city had seen something it wasn't supposed to see. And once people saw the cage, some of them couldn't pretend it wasn't there. Annie stepped onto the roof behind him, careful and quiet. Barry didn't turn right away. He knew it was her from her footsteps and her heartbeat. She sat beside him, leaving space between them like respect. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Annie said softly, "They're calling it the biggest leak in Vought history." Barry nodded once. "Good." Annie looked down at her hands. "It doesn't mean it ends," she said. Barry's voice was tired. "I know," he said. Annie glanced at him. "Did you stop the yellow one?" Barry's jaw tightened. He stared out over the city lights. "For now," he said. Annie studied his face. "What did he want?" Barry let out a slow breath. "He wanted me to break," Barry said, "or to change time, to fix things the wrong way." Annie's eyes softened. "And you didn't." Barry shook his head. "No," he said. "I wanted to. For a second." Annie didn't judge him. She just nodded like she understood what temptation felt like. Below them, a helicopter passed, not as close as before. Barry listened. He heard a distant argument on a street corner. He heard someone laughing, nervous and relieved. He heard a woman telling her friend, "I saw it. I saw the chair." Barry's chest ached again. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. "I miss home," Barry said, quiet. Annie's throat moved. "Yeah," she said. "I get that." Barry looked at the skyline. "But people need help here," he said. Annie's mouth tightened. "They do," she said. "And they don't deserve what Vought does to them." Barry nodded. "Nobody does." Annie hesitated. "What happens now?" she asked. Barry didn't give her a big speech. He gave her the simple truth. "Now, I keep running," Barry said. "I keep saving who I can. I keep collecting truth, and I keep trying not to become the thing they say I am." Annie watched him for a long beat. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object, a crumpled Vought ID card, snapped in half. "I found this," she said, "in the chaos. I thought you'd want it for your procedure." Barry blinked, then a small, tired smile tugged at his mouth. He took it gently. "Thank you," he said. He pulled out his little notebook. Annie's lips twitched. "Of course you have it," she murmured. Barry opened it, wrote the time and place, then slid the broken card into a small bag. He didn't do it because it was fun. He did it because it was how he stayed himself. He closed the notebook and looked down at the streets again. A distant scream rose, sharp and real. Barry's head lifted instantly. Annie turned, hearing it too. Barry stood. Annie watched him, eyes steady. "Be careful," she said. Barry nodded once. "Always," he said. Then Barry took one step, and the world blurred. He became a red streak across the night, slipping between lies and danger, chasing a sound that meant someone still needed a hero. And the city kept breathing. Not healed. Not safe. Just different now. Because somewhere in its veins, a real kind of hope had started to run.